The wind had already folded the paper target over twice when I set the two cartridges on the tailgate. 308 Winchester on the left, 30-06 Springfield on the right, same bullet diameter, same scratched plastic ammo box, same cold aluminum under my hand, and about $600 worth of elk trips sitting behind me in fuel, tags, food, and the kind of gear you buy because somebody promised November would be mild. I had one rifle case open. That was the problem. Because this argument gets treated like family religion. One side says the 308 made the old 30-06 obsolete. The other side acts like choosing the 308 is some kind of disrespect to your grandfather. I don't care. I want to know what the extra brass actually buys. And once you strip away 70 years of military mythology, gun counter shorthand, and velocity worship, the answer is better than either camp usually admits. The 308 is probably the smarter cartridge for more American shooters. The 30-06 still owns a capability the 308 cannot completely duplicate. And the place where they separate is not where most people think. If you want more comparisons like this, subscribe. I'm not giving either cartridge a family discount. What the extra brass actually buys. Start with the obvious difference. The 30-06 is bigger. Its case provides meaningfully more internal volume than the 308, although the exact usable capacity changes with case construction and brass manufacturer. Its maximum overall cartridge length is about 3.34 inches. The 308 is about 2.8. That is real extra room. But this is where somebody usually commits the first ballistic misdemeanor. They assume noticeably more case volume should produce a similar percentage increase in velocity. It doesn't. Internal ballistics has never worked that way. A larger case gives you room for more propellant, but velocity gains arrive with diminishing returns. Pressure limits, barrel length, expansion ratio, bullet weight, propellant characteristics, and the rest of the system all matter. More fuel does not buy proportionally more speed. Put comparable hunting loads beside each other and the 30-06 is generally faster. With common heavier hunting bullets, that difference may land somewhere around 100 to a couple hundred feet per second, depending on the exact ammunition and barrel. Useful? Absolutely. Transformational? Usually not. And I want to kill another story while we're here. The 308 does not possess some magical short case ability that turns nearly every grain of powder into useful work, while the 30-06 throws handfuls of wasted propellant into the weeds. Short, relatively efficient cases can perform extremely well, but reducing the difference to better ignition or claiming the larger cartridge routinely carries a meaningful portion of its powder out the muzzle unburned turns a complicated pressure and expansion problem into a campfire story. The real point is simpler. The 308 gets remarkably close to 30-06 performance while using a smaller cartridge envelope. That is genuine efficiency. It does not make the larger case pointless. It means you need to ask what that larger case is buying before agreeing to carry it. For the deer hunter, using common 150 to 180 grain bullets at ordinary hunting distances, the answer may be not much that changes the outcome. That is going to offend somebody with a Springfield tattoo. I'll survive. A properly constructed 150 grain hunting bullet placed through the vital area of a whitetail does not stop to read the head stamp. Neither does a 165. Within distances where a hunter can actually place the shot well under field conditions, bullet construction, impact velocity, wind reading, and shot placement can matter far more than a modest cartridge speed difference. That is the first major correction to this cartridge war. The 308 did not become successful by becoming just as large as the 30-06. It became successful by doing an enormous amount of the same everyday work in less space. And less space changed rifles. A 308 fits a short action. It fits compact bolt rifles. It fits an enormous family of semi-automatic rifles designed around the 7.62 NATO and 308 size cartridge envelope. The 30-06 lives in a long action. That is not a tragedy. I have never missed an elk because a bolt traveled an extra half-inch. But platform choice is real. Walk through the modern 30 caliber rifle world and 308 is everywhere. Bolt guns, precision rifles, semi-automatics, hunting rifles, match rifles. 30-06 is largely somewhere else. Wearing a walnut stock, and looking mildly disappointed in what happened to the neighborhood. That architecture is one reason the 308 became so successful. The other reason is historical, and this is where people start turning military procurement into a hunting argument. After the Second World War, American ordnance development moved toward a shorter 30 caliber service cartridge and the rifles designed around it. Winchester introduced the commercial 308 Winchester in 1952. The related 7.62 by 51 cartridge later became the NATO standard. That history proves the value of the shorter package. It does not prove that the 308 possesses every bit of sporting capability available from the larger 30-06 case. Those are different claims. They replace the 30-06 with the 308. As a military service cartridge transition, yes. Therefore, the 308 is ballistically superior for every civilian purpose. No. Military ammunition decisions involve weapon size, ammunition weight, logistics, standardization, controllability, manufacturing, and the requirements of the whole weapon system. They are not North American hunting cartridge championships. The service rifle story makes that pretty obvious. The M14 did not become America's standard rifle for the next 50 years. The military kept moving toward lighter rifles and lighter ammunition. That does not make the 308 a failure. It proves the larger point. Military adoption is about systems. Hunters should think the same way. What rifle? What bullet? What recoil level? What distance? What animal? What does the complete package need to accomplish? Answer those first, and a lot of cartridge arguments quietly die on their own, where the 30-06 pulls away. Now we reach the part where the extra case begins earning its place. Heavy bullets. The original argument gets exaggerated here too, so I want this clean. The 308 does not hit a brick wall at 180 grains. It can use heavier 30 caliber bullets. Published load data includes bullets above 180 grains, and rifles exist with twist rates capable of stabilizing them. Modern 308 rifles are not universally 1 in 12 twist either. Plenty use faster twists. So if somebody tells you a 308 simply cannot shoot a 200 grain bullet, they are selling certainty they have not earned. But geometry still collects its debt. Long bullets occupy space. Inside the 308's shorter cartridge envelope, that becomes restrictive sooner. Depending on the bullet, chamber, magazine length, and loading, a long projectile may have to sit deeper relative to the case than it would in the longer 30-06 system. The 30-06 gives the ammunition designer more case capacity and more cartridge length to work with. As bullet weight climbs, that larger operating envelope becomes increasingly useful. This is where I start preferring the old cartridge, not because it is old, because the math finally gives me something in return. Current industry performance standards include 200 grain data for both cartridges. So again, the 308 is not barred from the heavy bullet table. But the 30-06 carries the same general bullet weight faster. That is exactly the distinction that matters. Not the 308 cannot. The 30-06 simply gives you more room and more velocity margin as you move toward the heavier end of 30 caliber hunting bullets. That is an honest advantage. There was a time when I would have turned that into a much broader rule. Heavy animal? Take the 30-06. Easy answer. Age has made me suspicious of easy answers. Because bullet weight by itself does not kill anything. Bullet construction matters. Impact velocity matters. Angle matters. Placement matters. And the animal has never read a loading manual. The number that matters is downrange. Copper hunting bullets make this particularly important. A monolithic bullet has an intended impact velocity window, just like any other hunting projectile. And different designs are built to behave differently as velocity falls. Barnes makes a useful distinction with its own bullets. For the TTSX, its current guidance puts the preferred hunting impact velocity roughly around 1,900 to 2,000 feet per second or higher. The long-range LRX family is designed to work farther down the velocity curve, with Barnes recommending roughly 1,700 to 1,800 feet per second or higher for hunting impact. Those numbers are not universal rules for every copper bullet. That is precisely the lesson. Know the exact projectile. Know what its manufacturer says it was designed to do. Then ask the number that matters. Not, what did it leave the muzzle at? What will it be doing when it gets there? I learned to care about that question more after watching hunters obsess over the velocity printed on the box. Muzzle velocity is comforting because it is right there in large type. Impact velocity takes work. You need a realistic starting velocity. You need the bullet's ballistic coefficient. You need distance and conditions. And if the shot is near the edge of that bullet's intended operating window, you need enough discipline to recognize the difference between possible and sensible. The box does not hike up the ridge and make that decision for you. This is where the 30-06's extra velocity becomes more than bragging rights. Take two comparable bullets. Start one faster. Everything else being reasonably equal, the faster one reaches a given minimum impact velocity farther downrange. That can extend the distance over which the bullet remains inside the performance window its designer intended. There is your real 30-06 advantage. Margin, not magic. Margin. And I would much rather give a hunter honest margin than 500 words of mythology. Energy deserves the same treatment. Yes, a faster 30-06 load normally carries more kinetic energy than a comparable 308 load using the same bullet weight. No, that does not let us convert an energy percentage directly into a prediction about breaking a particular shoulder, producing an exit, or recovering an animal. Terminal performance does not work like an accounting spreadsheet. A bullet can arrive with impressive energy and behave poorly if its construction or impact conditions are wrong. Another can arrive with less energy and penetrate exactly as intended. Energy is useful information. It is not a verdict. If I am choosing ammunition for elk, I care more about a suitable hunting bullet, arriving inside its intended performance window from a rifle I can place accurately under field conditions than I care about winning an energy column argument at 500 yards. And that brings us to the part of this comparison that changed my own answer. The midpoint most cartridge arguments miss. If the 30-06 owns the larger performance envelope, why am I still telling most shooters to look hard at the 308? Because a rifle does not spend its life firing one heroic shot at an elk. It spends its life being carried, practiced with, cleaned, stored, zeroed, and shot when the weather is bad and your shoulder is already tired. That part of ownership gets ignored because it is not romantic enough. Comparable rifle to comparable rifle, using similar bullet weights, the 308 normally produces less recoil because it is generally launching the bullet at lower velocity with less propellant involved. The exact difference depends on the rifle and ammunition. That qualification matters. A lightweight 308 can recoil harder than a heavy 30-06. Anyone quoting one universal recoil percentage without specifying rifle weight and load is measuring smoke with a ruler. But keep the comparison fair, and the 308 is usually easier on the shoulder. After 3 rounds, who cares? After 40, I do. I have watched good shooters begin a range session with beautiful fundamentals and end it negotiating with the trigger like it owes them money. Fatigue is real. Flinch is real. And a cartridge that lets somebody practice comfortably has an advantage that never appears on a trajectory chart. That is the strongest argument against my own affection for the 30-06. A hunter with a 308 who shoots regularly, knows his trajectory, understands his wind limits, confirms his zero, and knows what his bullet does at impact has a far more useful hunting system than a man with a 30-06 who fires 6 rounds before opening day and assumes extra case capacity makes up the difference. It does not. Skill is not stored in brass. That is why the 308 wins for so many people. Deer hunting? 308 makes enormous sense. Range use plus hunting? Same answer for a lot of shooters. A modern semi-automatic platform? The 308 size system dominates that decision. A recoil-sensitive shooter choosing between otherwise similar rifles? I start with the 308. A hunter who knows 150 to 180 grain bullets cover everything he realistically intends to ask of the rifle? Again, 308 deserves to be first on the bench. And that is not settling. The engineering compromise is simply very good, compact enough, powerful enough, broadly supported. Easy to find in an enormous variety of rifles and ammunition configurations. I like old equipment, but I am not going to charge a younger hunter a nostalgia tax just because I enjoy seeing 30-06 stamped on a barrel. Now change the assignment. 1 bolt rifle. Deer every year. Elk regularly. Maybe moose. You want the option of 180, 200, or other suitable heavy .30 caliber hunting bullets, and you want additional velocity margin without moving into a larger Magnum cartridge. Now I reach across the bench for the .30-06. That is where the longer case still makes sense. Not because the .308 failed, because your requirement moved toward the part of the performance envelope where the larger case earns its keep, pressure without the conspiracy. One last myth deserves to die before we close the ammunition box: pressure. You will sometimes hear that the .30-06 is intentionally strangled at 58,000 psi, while the .308 gets 62,000. Usually there is a conspiracy attached to it. Ammunition companies are terrified of every old rifle in America. The .30-06 is being deliberately held back. Give it modern pressure and the truth will finally escape. Nice story. The current Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Institute standard puts maximum average pressure at 60,000 psi for the .30-06 Springfield and 62,000 for the .308 Winchester. 2,000 psi, not 4. And pressure ceiling alone does not explain the cartridge's performance difference. Case volume, bullet weight, barrel length, propellant selection, cartridge geometry, and the shape of the pressure curve all matter. There does not need to be a conspiracy hiding in the chamber. The physics is interesting enough, and this is probably the biggest change in my own thinking about these cartridges. I used to want one winner. Now I want the requirement written down before anybody starts arguing. Because these cartridges overlap enormously. They are not identical. The .308 does not erase the .30-06. The .30-06 does not make the .308 inadequate. They optimize different parts of the same .30 caliber problem. The rifle you will actually use. Back at the truck, those two cartridges are still lying on the tailgate. The .308 looks almost stubby beside the .30-06. And there's 70 years of unnecessary emotion packed into the space between them. If most of your shooting means deer, range time, ordinary hunting distances, manageable recoil, or rifles built around the shorter cartridge envelope, I would choose the .308 Winchester. For most shooters, it is the smarter system. If your priority is a traditional bolt rifle with a wider useful envelope for heavy .30 caliber hunting bullets, especially when larger game and additional velocity margin matter, I would choose the .30-06 Springfield. That is where the old cartridge still earns the longer case. No conspiracy, no obsolete relic, no miracle short cartridge. Just two extremely competent tools whose overlap is enormous and whose differences become important only after the job becomes specific. I pick up the .308 first, then I pick up the .30-06. The shorter round disappears into one pocket. The old Springfield goes back into the cartridge box beside a scratched elk tag and a pair of gloves that still smell faintly like wet pine. I would trust either one for the work it was built to do, but I would not pretend they are the same. That is the lesson worth keeping. Do not choose the cartridge with the better legend. Choose the rifle you will practice with, the bullet that fits the animal, and the performance margin your actual hunt requires. And if you still think the .30-06 Advantage is worth carrying for everything, tell me why. If you think the .308 already covers every hunting job you will ever ask of a .30 caliber, tell me where you draw that line. That argument is worth having. The cartridge war isn't.